What is up, everybody? One Piece chapter 1188 may have just revealed the single most important weakness Emu has, and almost everyone is looking at the wrong thing. Most of the conversation surrounding this chapter has focused on Luffy losing, and people are debating whether Loki is stronger than Luffy, whether Luffy needs another form, whether Emu is now above Roger and Whitebeard, and whether Blackbeard can still realistically become the final villain. But while all those conversations are understandable, I think this chapter quietly placed something far more important directly in front of us: the strange ring of eyes behind Emu. Because after studying how Emu fights, how the Omen characters behave, how the weapons are created, and how Emu's abilities appear to connect other people, I do not believe that ring is just an aura. I do not believe it's simply a visual effect designed to make Emu look demonic, and I do not believe those eyes are there only for symbolism. I believe the eye rings is the actual mechanism behind Emu's power. It may be Emu's weapon storage, it may be the source of the Omen creatures, it may connect Emu to every person under Emu's control, and the most extreme possibility is the ring may be closer to Emu's true body than the physical figure standing in front of Emu. Because chapter 1188 did not just show us that Emu is overwhelmingly powerful, it may have shown us that Luffy was attacking the wrong target. And if this is true, then chapter 1188 was not a defeat chapter, it was a clue chapter. Once we understand what that ring is doing, the entire battle begins to make sense. Let's begin with the most important visual detail. When Emu changes weapons, the previous weapon does not simply transform in Emu's hands. It dissolves, it returns to the black Omen-like substance, and that substance appears to move back towards the ring before another weapon is produced. That sequence is extremely important, because if Emu were simply reshaping a weapon with a normal devil fruit ability, there will be no reason for the power to return anywhere. Emu could transform one weapon directly into another. The sword will become the staff could become the fist could become the blade, but that is not what Oda shows us. Instead, the weapon appears to break down into the same dark substance connected to the ring. It returns to that structure, and only then does Emu pull out something new. That makes the eye ring feel less like a decoration and more like an inventory, a living arsenal suspended behind Emu's body, almost as if every weapon Emu uses already exists inside that space waiting to be summoned. And that may explain why Emu's fighting style feels so unnatural. Emu is not carrying weapons, Emu is accessing them. The ring functions like a doorway between Emu and much larger sources of power, and once we recognize that possibility, another detail becomes much more important. The Omen creatures appear to share the same visual language, the same darkness, the same unnatural texture, the same demonic presentation, and potentially the same eyes. That suggests the weapon and the monsters may not be separate abilities. They may be different expressions of the same system. Emu may not creating individual creatures from nothing. Emu may be pulling forms out of the ring. A sword is summoned when Emu needs a blade. A giant fist is summoned when Emu needs physical force, and an Omen creature is summoned when Emu needs independent soldiers. The shape changes, the purpose changes, but the source remains the same, and that will mean the eye ring is not merely a weapon storage system. It could be a production system, a place where Emu's darkness is given form, and this is where the theory becomes much larger, because the eyes surrounding Emu may not simply be watching the battlefield. They may represent active connections, and each eye could represent or correspond to a person, creature, weapon, vessel, or currently tied to Emu. Think about what Emu's abilities consistently involve: control, possession, transformation, the ability to impose a new identity onto someone else, the ability to turn warriors into extensions of Emu's will, the ability to affect people from a distance, and the ability to maintain influence through a network rather than through direct physical contact alone. If that is true, then the eye ring could literally be the network itself. Every eye is another connection, every eye is another extension, every eye is another body through which Emu can see, attack, or act. That will explain why eyes are so central to Emu's design. They are not just there to make Emu look terrifying, they could be telling us how the power functions. Emu sees through the controlled, right? Emu acts through the control. Emu may even survive through the control, and this is why attacking the physical body may not be enough. Luffy lands attacks, Loki lands attack, the body is damaged, but the power does not seem to collapse. The weapons remain available, the Omen system remains active, and Emu continues fighting as though the body itself is replaceable. That may be because the body is not the core, the ring is. The figure standing in front of Luffy may only be the current version through which the ring is operating, and if that sounds extreme, remember what the the arc has already taught us. Imu's power does not appear to follow normal physical rules. Distance may not matter in the way it matters for an ordinary fighter. The condition of the host body may not matter in the way it would for an ordinary fighter. And even the identity of the person standing before us may not be as simple as it appears. Imu's presence can be transferred. Imu's influence can overwhelm another person. And Imu can apparently fight through a body that may not originally belong to Imu. So what exactly is Luffy punching? Is he striking Imu, or is he striking a vessel being operated by Imu's power? If that is true, everything changes. If the body is only an avatar, then Luffy's attacks can be powerful and still fail to solve the real problem. He can hurt the vessel without damaging the source. He can overpower the body without severing the contact. And Luffy can appear to lose without his Haki actually being inferior. The real problem may be that he still has not discovered where Imu truly exists. That may be the hidden purpose of Luffy's defeat in chapter 1188. The battle may not be asking whether Luffy has enough raw strength. It may be asking whether Luffy understands the enemy. Luffy entered the fight treating Imu like every other opponent. Find the body, hit the body, overwhelm the body with greater force, but Imu may not be an opponent who can be defeated through direct impact alone. Imu may need to be disconnected, and that creates a fascinating parallel with how Luffy defeated certain enemies before. Against Crocodile, Luffy had to discover how to touch him. Against NL, Luffy's body naturally countered the lightning. Against Katakuri, Luffy had to understand future sight. Against Kaido, Luffy had to learn how to project Haki beyond the surface. The solution was never simple, right? It was never simply punch harder, right? Luffy had to understand the rules governing the opponent. Imu's rule may be connection. As long as the ring remains intact, Imu can continue restoring weapons, maintaining control, and operating through vessels. The ring may be the equivalent of Imu's exposed circuit board. The physical body is only the machine standing in front of Luffy. The ring is the system controlling it. And there may already evidence, right, that this system has limitations. Okay, Imu appears to be operating under time restriction, and that detail is easy to overlook because Imu is so dominant while the ability is active. But a time limit is never meaningless in One Piece. Oda does not establish one unless it will matter later on. If Imu could remain in this state indefinitely, there would be no reason to mention the restriction. The fact that the limitation exists tells us the power consumes something. Maybe it consumes stamina, maybe it burns life force, maybe the vessel itself can only withstand Imu's presence for a limited period of time. Or perhaps maintaining that connection across such a massive distance is what creates the restriction. And the more abilities Imu uses, the harder the connection may become to sustain. Every weapon, every Omen creature, every controlled warrior, every regeneration, every act of possession, all of it may place strain on the same central network. And suddenly Imu's greatest strength becomes a weakness, because Imu may appear to have unlimited power while actually dividing one power source across multiple functions. The ring could be distributing energy to every active piece on the battlefield. And if Luffy or Loki can force Imu to keep producing larger attacks, replacing destroyed weapons, and maintaining control over multiple bodies, they may be draining the system without realizing it. This is why Loki's performance is so important. Loki does not necessarily prove that Luffy is weak. Loki may be revealing the correct way to fight Imu. Luffy appeared or approached the battlefield through speed, transformation, and direct attack. Loki appeared to bring overwhelming force, durability, and possibly knowledge that Luffy does not possess. And unlike Luffy, Loki may understand Elbaph's history with the world government. He may recognize the symbol. He may know what the eyes represent. He may understand the body is not the real target. And that could explain why Oda placed Luffy and Loki in the same confrontation. The point may not be to permanently establish Loki above Luffy. The point may be to show Luffy what he is missing. Loki may be the temporary guide who exposes the mechanism before Luffy develops the power necessary to destroy. And that is where the Haki bloom becomes critical. Luffy does not need a completely unrelated transformation. He may not need Gear 6. He may not need another Devil Fruit awakening. What he needs is a level of Haki capable of striking the connection itself. We have already seen that advanced Haki can do more increased physical damage. Observation Haki allows a fighter to perceive what others cannot. Armament Haki allows a fighter to attack beyond the surface. Conqueror's Haki allows a person's will to dominate the space around them. So what happens when all three are pushed to their highest level? Luffy may become capable of perceiving the invincible bond between Imu, the vessel, and the eye ring. Then, rather than attacking the body, he could attack the bond. That will be the next logical evolution of internal destruction. Against Kaido, Luffy learns to bypass the scales and damage the inside. Against Imu, Luffy may need to bypass the vessel and damage the controlling will behind it. That will be the true endgame application of Haki. Not simply stronger black lightning, not a larger punch, but the ability to reach the real person through every layer Imu has placed between them. And it will perfectly reinforce the statement that Haki transcends all. That's what Kaido says. Haki transcends all! Imu may possess the most broken ability in the series. Imu may control armies, create monsters, summon weapons, transfer consciousness, and regenerate through darkness. But if Luffy's Haki can sever connections between Imu and those abilities, then the entire system collapses. The monsters could disappear, controlled warriors could regain themselves, the weapons could dissolve, the vessel could become powerless, and for the first time, Imu could be exposed. If Haki is the key to defeating Imu, then where does that leave Blackbeard? Because this theory may even explain why Blackbeard still matters in the endgame. If Imu's power is based on a devil fruit, Blackbeard may be able to shut it down through darkness. But if Imu's power extends beyond a normal devil fruit and is tied to will, possession, and some ancient system, then Blackbeard cannot solve anything by touching Imu. He may be able to suppress the outer ability, and Luffy may be the one who has to break the inner connection. That gives both characters a role without requiring Blackbeard to become stronger than Imu in every category. Blackbeard can disrupt the system. Luffy can destroy the will controlling it. And there may be an even deeper reason the ring is made of eyes. Oda has repeatedly used unusual eyes around characters connected to hidden identities, abnormal perception, split consciousness, and ancient mythologies. Mihawk's eyes, Zunisha's eyes, Cavendish and Hakuba, and several other characters whose eyes seem to hint that something deeper exists beneath the surface. A second consciousness, an abnormal form of perception, a hidden identity, or a will that does not belong entirely to the visible body. Imu's ring takes that imagery and multiplies that. Imu does not possess one strange pair of eyes. Imu is surrounded by them. Those eyes could represent every identity Imu has collected over the centuries. They could represent a ruler who has absorbed will, or an identity survived by spreading itself through other people. This will make Imu the complete opposite of Luffy. Luffy brings people together without controlling them. They follow Luffy because he gives them freedom, and Imu connects people by taking their freedom away. Luffy's alliances are formed through trust. Imu's networks is formed through domination. Luffy creates a family, Imu creates puppets. And the final battle may be decided by which type of connection is stronger. The forced connection represented by Imu's eye rings, or the voluntary connection represented by everyone who has chosen to believe in Luffy. This is why I do not think chapter 1188 was simply designed to show us Luffy losing. It was designed to expose the scale of the problem. Luffy is not fighting one person. He may be fighting an entire network of bodies, weapons, and stolen will concentrated into one entity. And until Luffy recognizes that, every attack will be aimed at the wrong layer. So here's my prediction. First, Luffy will recover from this round. That is not the end of the battle. And it is not permanent proof that Loki has surpassed him. Loki may remain stronger in certain areas right now, but Luffy's growth will come from understanding Imu's mechanism. Second, Loki will either directly explain the eye ring or demonstrate that it can be damaged. He may attack the space behind Imu rather than the body itself, and that will be the moment Luffy realizes the ring is not merely an aura. Third, once the ring is damaged, at least one of Imu's active abilities will fail. A weapon will disappear, an Omen creature may collapse, a controlled character may briefly regain consciousness, or Imu's vessel may begin rejecting the possession. This will confirm that everything is connected. Fourth, Luffy's next Haki bloom will allow him to perceive and strike that connection. His power up will not simply make Gear 5 faster or stronger. It will give him access to the true target. And finally, I believe that destroying the ring will not immediately defeat Imu. It will reveal Imu. The person or the creature we currently recognize as Imu may be only one layer. And once the eyes are broken and the network collapses, the real body may finally appear. That could be the moment Oda reveals what Imu actually is. A human who has achieved immortality. A conscious consciousness transferred across generations, a devil fruit's will that has consumed the original user, or an ancient being perceived since the Void Century, or maybe even something stranger. Ever the answer is, I believe the ring is the key. One Piece chapter 1188 showed us Imu at the height of Imu's power, but in doing so, Oda may have intentionally showed us where all of that power returned. The weapons returned to the ring, the darkness returned to the ring, and the body continues to fight as though the damage inflicted on it does not matter. That is not just visual spectacle. That is not just a visual spectacle. This is a system, and systems can be broken. Luffy does not lose because he can never defeat Imu. Luffy lost because he does not yet understand what he's fighting. He attacked the body, but the body may only be the puppet. The eyes may be the strings, and once Luffy learns how to cut those strings, Imu's greatest strength may become the clearest weapon Oda has ever hidden in plain sight. So, do you believe that the eye ring is Imu's true body, a weapon storage system, a network connecting Imu to every Omen creature, or could each eye represent a different person whose will Imu has taken, right? Let me know what your thoughts on this theory is down below. Let me know what your predictions are. And the next time Luffy attacks Imu, right, I want you to remember this prediction. Also remember, do not watch the body, watch the ring. Watch the ring, because that may be where the real battle finally begins.